Hello, book lovers, and welcome to the 50th episode of Authors Love Bookstores, presented by A Mighty Blaze. I'm your host, Joe Moldover, author of the novel Every Moment After, and I'm so happy to be here today. Authors Love Bookstores is a weekly online program held every Wednesday. I host and co-produce alongside my friend and fellow writer, Kimberly Hensel-Lawrence. Our goal is to highlight independent bookstores across the US and Canada, to tell you what makes them so special, and to talk about what you can do to support their ongoing survival. If you're with us live on Facebook or YouTube, please feel free to post a question via comment below the broadcast, and we will get to as many of them as we can. Today, I am so delighted to welcome author Julia Claiborne Johnson. Julia is the author of the best-selling Be Frank With Me, a finalist for the American Booksellers Association Best Debut Novel Award, and of Better Luck Next Time, her new novel set on a Reno divorce ranch. Resist that hook if you can. She lives in LA with her comedy writer husband and their 2 children. Welcome, Julia. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Well, thank you for having me and for getting us through our technical difficulties we were having earlier. It was very exciting.
There's always an exciting moment. Also with us, Dan Graham from Book Soup in West Hollywood, California, bookseller to the great and the infamous, according to the website. Dan, welcome. It's so good to see you today.
Thanks. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Okay. Let's dive right in. So, Julia, we're here today because you selected Book Soup as one of your favorite independent bookstores. Now, I know that you have lived all over the country. You've lived in New York City. I'm sure you've been in many independent bookstores over the years. Can you tell us what makes Book Soup special?
Well, first of all, Dan Graham, my very first bookseller friend as an author, because he had to hold my hand at an event where I had to speak and hadn't ever spoken to in front of people since high school. And so I had him in a death grip. Do you remember that? So I loved him anyway, but Book Soup is on Sunset Strip, which is hilarious just to think about it. And it is not a huge space, but it has every book you would ever want in your whole life in there. And it's so fun to go. So I love it. It's a great place. And you see all kinds of people. You get tourists, you get like people who work in the industry, regular people, everything. It's great.
That's awesome. That makes me wish I was there. Dan, I would love to ask you a couple of questions about Book Soup so that our viewers can get a little bit of an idea what it's like and about your experience as a bookseller. So one of the questions I love to ask is, can you tell us about a memorable live event from the store? Memorable in any way. It could be fun, it could be terrible, it could be strange, terrifying. We've heard all kinds of things. I'd love to hear what you think of.
Sure. Well, I was thinking about that question, and honestly, any event right now, I would relive again if I could.
Would you?
I so miss being with people and hosting live events. But I will tell you of one specifically. It was 2016, Grace Jones, when she had her memoir.
Oh my God.
And it was a late ad. We already had an event that night that we couldn't cancel, but we went ahead and agreed to like an early or a late afternoon event. It was like a 4 o'clock. But we had another event that night, so we're like, she has to be on time. And she'll be on time. She'll absolutely be on time. She was not on time. But she was exactly what you would want Grace Jones to be. And she was amazing, particularly with the fans. She was gracious with us, a lot of fun. It went late, but it's Grace Jones. You don't Grace Jones. So you just worked with it. So we basically had 2 events happening almost at the same time. There's a little bit of overlap, but we made it work and we got through it. And she was amazing.
Well, whoever was coming after her must have just been thrilled to pieces. Like, can you imagine? You're just going to go do an event and suddenly you're like co-appearing with Grace Jones. That seems like it would be so fun. Headlining, co-headlining. That's the word I want.
Yeah.
Julia, Mary has a question for you.
Let's hear it.
And the question is, outside of Dan, obviously, do you have a favorite bookseller?
Okay, Mary O'Malley is also a bookseller. And the funny thing is there's a character in my book whose name is Nina O'Malley, and she's named after two bookseller friends of mine, Nina Garrett and Mary O'Malley. And there's a character also named after Dan Graham, whose name is Daniel, and he's nefarious. So, and there are a couple of lines in the book that say, somebody sees a letter with Uncle Daniel's name on it and says, "Who's Daniel?" And he says, "He's nobody." And every time I came to that Dan Graham, I would just laugh and laugh and laugh because I mean, you probably didn't notice it, but it was a little joke I put in there for me. So because Dan's everybody, he's everything, and Mary O'Malley is too.
I love it. I love it. That is some of the fun of writing, is putting in those little sort of Easter eggs. For friends and family time.
Because it's so hard to write. Like, it's the best thing to just keep yourself amused while you're doing it. That's really important.
Yeah, I do that with characters' names as well. Dan, I want to ask you something I love to talk about with booksellers is, the art of making like a really good book recommendation. It's something that I think a lot of people find very difficult to do. I definitely can never come up with anything if somebody asks me, like what a good book to read might be or what they might like. But independent booksellers seem to have some sort of a superpower where, somebody can walk into the store and sort of say something very sort of obtuse, like I like this author, or I want to read about Alaska, but also about seals and also about like water skiing. And like somehow you just kind of like pull a book out of the air. So can you just say a little bit about like, what is the art of making like a really good book recommendation? How do you think about that?
I think for me, well, you're passionate. If there's something that you know about and you're just like, you absolutely have to read this, it's easy to hand sell a book that you are passionate about. If you're getting an inquiry about something that you maybe don't know about, I sort of take the ego out of it, and like I might recommend something that is not going to hit the mark, but you just keep going until you find the one that does. It's important. You just want to match the book to the person. And it could be a subject that I know nothing about. That happens often. And so it's sort of an education for me as well as the person making the inquiry. You just sort of stay with it. And it's okay to be shot down. Don't take it personally. I'll find the book, if I have enough time.
It's a really good point, because I think a lot of people do take it personally. If you recommend a book, it's not like recommending a pair of shoes. It's recommending something really personal that's kind of touched you or moved you. And so I think you're right. I think that quality of just being able to kind of keep going and not make it personal. That's great. Thank you. There's another audience question for you, Dan, about whether the pandemic has forced you to, again from Mary, has forced you to do anything differently that you will keep doing it, sort of post-pandemic. Is there anything that you're like, oh, this actually works really well, even after COVID? Like, we're not going to stop doing this. Is there anything like that?
I imagine we'll probably continue to do curbside, some form of curbside pickup for a long time afterwards. And, we were lucky at BookSoup because we had a very active events program, and we sell a lot of autographed signed books. So we already had sort of the processes in place for shipping books domestically and internationally. So we kind of knew how to do that already. The volume was difficult to manage, at least in the beginning, and we've sort of worked with it throughout the year. But I'm thankful actually that we were sort of in that place where we kind of knew we did a lot of shipping already. I imagine a great piece of our business will remain shipping for the foreseeable future, especially now given our limited operating hours. But we'll continue. We'll do a lot of that going forward, I'm sure. We miss seeing people, but we're hanging in there, and this is how we hang in there, giving them a chance to pick up curbside so they could remain a safe distance, or just shipping to them.
Yeah, because I had to go pick up a book, or it was when I came to sign books or something, and I thought, oh, I'm going to settle in for a nice gab with Dan, and like people kept coming up, and I was like, so I just had to like give up and let go. But it's so thrilling to see people like they were lining up to get their books.
Yeah.
So are you guys open again, Dan?
We are, but shorter hours. So right now
okay.
we're still doing 11 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Mhm.
It's smaller groups, so 6 people at a time.
Mhm.
But LA is moving towards opening up again very soon. So we're starting to look at, okay, how can we maybe, and how soon can we extend these operating hours? And we're limiting to 6 right now, but we could open that up again, very soon. I miss, with our front door, if you've been to Book Soup recently, the front door, there's a table blocking it.
Mhm.
You can't just come up to the door and pull on the door and it's locked. I mean, there's a barrier, but I cannot wait until that is removed and, you just pick up that door. You're right there on Sunset, pull the door open and you walk in. I mean, we're ready for that.
I'd love to ask you guys a couple of writing questions. A lot of our viewers are writers. We also have a bunch of audience questions coming in. Before I do, though, I just want to remind the audience that you should be heading to booksoup.com for your book buying needs. I'm going to make a subliminal suggestion just with an item in the background right behind me.
That looks like a wonderful book.
Doesn't that look great? And it is available at Book Soup. You can order it online along with Julia's first book, Be Frank With Me.
And you can get it signed from him. So.
Okay. So reminding the audience about that. Couple of writing things. Julia, first of all, a constant struggle, I think, for all writers has been to be productive during COVID, to be able to write, to be able to focus, to be able to think about anything other than the news. And so can you talk to me a little bit about that? Have you been able to be creative and to be productive? And if so, what works for you?
I've done a lot of home repair. I'll tell you that. Because that was important because you were spending a lot of time in our homes now. And I've done a lot of publicity stuff. And my first book, which you can see up here, it's Be Frank With Me. So I wrote that as a screen. I adapted it into a screenplay, and somebody optioned the screenplay in the book. So I've worked on that. I'm trying to get together pitches for this one to go to TV, and I have my new notebook for my third novel, and there's like stuff written on the first page because I make notes a lot. But I'm also one of those people who gestates a lot. Like I don't write every day. Like once I start, everybody back up. And I was reading a review of Kazuo Ishiguro. Maybe you've heard of him. He's kind of good. And he's
okay.
Like me. He's an all or nothing at all. Like once he starts, the world falls away, but he doesn't do it every day. And I fall into that category.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, he'll just kind of go off and win the Nobel and then sort of go and be quiet for a while and not do anything.
It's going to be me pretty soon. I'm kind of confident about this.
Dan, talk to me about writers a little bit. I mean, part of the life of a writer and the life of a bookseller is about sort of trying to engage with each other and establish relationships with each other. How do authors engage with indie bookstores? And I guess I'm sort of wondering if there are mistakes authors make, and if there's advice that you would give authors who are, trying to connect.
Julie and I have a fun story because we were sort of thrown together at this bookseller luncheon, and that's sort of how we became. And we were fast friends. I mean, just out the gate.
Yeah.
So it's fun when you have those moments when you meet an author like that. And I'm always I'm in awe of anybody who sits down and pounds out a novel or any kind of book. Does the research, whatever. And so I'm a fan just from the get-go. So meeting new authors, I mean, it's interesting because I feel like in some ways, just even to be established, you kind of got to do the social media thing. So you have to be on Twitter, Instagram, a lot of people reaching out to us, new authors recently, debut authors, particularly for YA, pre-order campaigns have been really successful for us. So there's a new book, their first novels in many cases is coming out. They have a wide reach through Instagram or through Twitter, and they find a bookstore that is close to their home bookstore. Mm-hmm. And we're fortunate to be where we're at in LA because many people are out here writing. So we get to be their home bookstore, and then we run these campaigns for pre-orders, and they come by and sign the books when the book goes on sale. They personalize it for people who request personalization.
Mhm.
I mean, we've been very fortunate with a lot of those programs. It's a huge boost, and sometimes it's a debut author, and you'll sell 200, 300 books, and you're like, they're doing the work because
That's
they're
amazing.
those fans. Yeah, because they have a real connection to their fan base through all these different
Mhm.
channels, and it's been really successful for us. I will say one thing that authors often do, and we love to get at somebody tweets at us, but a lot of times an author will include a link, but the link is to Amazon, and
No. Oh my God, you're kidding. Oh, how
Yeah.
did they do
we
that?
appreciate it. We want you've made us aware of this book. We want to support you. We want to, especially authors who are trying to get traction, and for books that are on subjects that are sort of that we historically do well with here. But it's hard to retweet those tweets if there's an Amazon link.
Yeah, no kidding.
Oh man, you're not the first person who has mentioned that. Actually, a couple of booksellers have sort of mentioned authors reaching out and having a lot of Amazon links, or their social media being or web pages being very Amazon centric. So yeah, that does seem to be a pretty consistent tip for the writers among us. Dan,
sometimes we'll retweet it and we'll attach a link to that book on our, and we'll say something like "fixed it," kind of.
Yeah. Dan, question for you from Alex. West Hollywood is such a fun and funky location. Why do you think the neighborhood and Book Soup work so well together? Any weird stories about life on the Strip?
Oh, every day is weird on the Strip.
I bet. Oh my God.
Even now. It's fun. There's always an adventure. There's always something happening. I just think this neighborhood, we're right as sort of the Strip ends and heads into Beverly Hills. There's a lot of film and entertainment work around here. So we catch people on lunch breaks. We catch people after business meetings. In the evenings, we catch people before or after dinner. It's a fun area to just sort of walk around. And, it's LA, so if you find a parking spot somewhere, you're going to leave your car and walk around as much as you can before you leave the neighborhood.
I know, no kidding.
So, I think that's sort of why, there was always something happening on the Strip. So when Glenn Goldman, our original location was one more block down in 75. So Glenn Goldman, when he found that space, it's where he wanted to be. There was a lot of action, and eventually we moved more down to where we're at now and expanded from here too. But there's always something happening here, so it's not necessarily a quiet neighborhood.
No, it's exciting. And is there a newsstand next door to you, or am I making that up?
Well, we had an outdoor newsstand that
you did, right? It was yours.
And then we moved it around to the front. It's been closed for a year now, since the pandemic began. But we're hoping to open it up again very soon.
Because they're so hard to find in LA, and they're everywhere in New York. I was like, where are the newsstands? So
yeah, and they used to be everywhere in
LA.
Yeah.
Dan, in just a minute, I'm going to ask you to do your bookseller thing and talk a little bit about what people have been reading and what people seem interested in. But first, Julia, I'm going to come over to you with a audience question. Future book releases that you are currently looking forward to.
Who, me?
Yeah, you. Yeah.
Oh, I have a great one. Oh, shoot. And I had it on my desk and I took it downstairs because I was reading it again. There's a book called The Gunkle, which is by Stephen Rowley, who is the funniest guy alive. And it's like Auntie Mame, but a gay uncle. And it's really funny. And I read it in manuscript pages last year, like at the beginning of the pandemic. And I said to Steve, I texted him, I said, I wish people could read this now, because this is the kind of book people need to read. But, by the time it comes out, this will all be behind us. Ha, ha, ha. But it isn't out till May. God willing, it's out. That's behind us now, too. And there's some that are out right now. Like right now, I'm reading Clara and the Sun by my close personal friend, Nobel Prize winner, Kazuo Ishiguro. And, but yeah, like I have like 4 or 5 books going all the time. So I have one called The Other Black Girl, and I have We Began at the End. They're on my bedside table to read. I'm very busy.
Reminder to the audience that all of those are available at booksoup.com up on your screen. Go there and buy them. Dan, talk to us about what do people want to read these days? What do you find people are interested in?
We always did well with fiction, but fiction is, I think, really lifted in the last year. People just wanted something to escape, or a lot of people were going for those big novels, War and Peace and A Little Life, things that they were,
never had time for.
You could commit to it now. So we did that for, so fiction did really well. I'm thinking of like Vanishing Half. That was huge for us in the last year. I mean, we sold more. Yeah, we sold quite a bit of that. And then, last summer, a lot of race relations books. And, that was difficult too, because we were barely open and everybody wanted the same, 4 books mostly. And they were hard to get, so they were being reprinted, and that takes time. And so it was difficult logistically to get those books to readers. But over time, we did. It took longer than I think anybody would have wanted. But and that continues. I mean, even after the events of last week, we're starting to. Minor Feelings was a big book for us, and then it's sort of more recently. More people are asking for that again, which I'm glad people are reading those titles. And then, we're entertainment, so we've always sold a lot of books about Hollywood. The Mike Nichols book has been huge recently.
Oh, I loved that. I read that. It's terrific. Oh my God, I loved it so much. He dated everybody. Gloria Steinem was his girlfriend for a while. You're like, what? So anyway, pardon me for interrupting, but I loved that book.
It's so good, and I read it I'm almost done. I'm gonna the last chapter tonight. I took my time with that book because it's just so well written, and it's
terrific. I hate to tell you this, but he dies in the end. So
so good. So film. We always do a lot of film and a lot of music.
Yeah. Those are great recommendations. Mighty Blaze has been running now for a year. And as I mentioned at the beginning, this is our 50th episode. When we started doing these, it was kind of novel, like this whole idea of doing an online event and, talking to people over an online platform. And we've kind of had to coach authors through how to do it. There were authors who I taught how to use Zoom. And now, not so much. I mean, now it's much, much more saturated. So, Dan, another question from Mary. I mean, in the world of online virtual events, which are now obviously much, much more common, do you have any thoughts on what bookstores can do to stand apart?
Stand apart. I mean, that's a good question. I have grown to really love the virtual events. At first I was something that we're like, well, okay, we're going to do this thing because we can't meet in person. But there's a lot of upside to that. You don't have to be in the same city. The author can be interviewed by a friend who is in 3 time zones away or more. You can attend from anywhere, which is really remarkable. The live stream events are archived too on our Crowdcast site. So if somebody misses it and doesn't see it live, then they can go back and watch it later in the archive. So that's something that's remarkable too. I mean, I've hosted events for 10 years, and I have had really remarkable events where like 5 people attended, and I'm like, I can't believe I'm one of 5 people who saw this thing happen, and there's no record of it. It sort of ends and goes on.
Oh, interesting.
So now in this virtual world, even if you have fewer viewers in the moment, you have this archive. It lives, and we started putting them up on our YouTube page, and so it sort of it exists on. But I would say for how to sort of differentiate yourself, I just think part of it is just being open to whatever comes up and just sort of rolling with it. I mean, that's part of being a bookseller now. So being open to retooling your YouTube page and then posting events on that. We try to do like a little plug at the beginning of our virtual events where we sort of say, okay, this is free, but a purchase keeps us open. So, please buy the book if you can. There's all kinds of ways to just sort of just stay at it, I guess.
Mhm.
Yeah. Julia, I mean, you are out, supporting, once again, I'll remind the audience, this piece. But, I mean, you also, you previously published a book. I'm sure you've done a lot of in-store events for Be Frank with Me. I mean, talk to me about doing virtual events. I mean, how do you feel about it? What are the pitfalls? What are the ups and downs of it?
What's nice is Joseph knows I am wearing cutoffs right now, which I would not be wearing at a virtual event. And also they were my daughter's cutoffs. So they were looking pretty awesome right now, let me tell you. I miss walking into a store and seeing people I was never prom queen. I know this surprises you all, but walk into a store and have people look at you like, oh, and I haven't said anything and they're excited to see me. I was like, oh, this is what it's like to be prom queen. Like, that is awesome. And you don't really get that on Zoom. But then I did a thing for a bookstore in Thomasville, Georgia called The Bookshop. And she was telling me how because they're off the beaten track, they could never really get authors to come, but now they can have anybody. And that's really great. And like when I did my book launch, which was January 6th, you guys may remember that day.
Yeah.
Things happened, but I had 4 booksellers. Mary O'Malley's bookstore did it. I'd signed books for everybody so they'd have them. But then we had to soldier on, and one of the bookstores was on Capitol Hill. But we all sort of came together. It was great. And I think if I'd actually been on Capitol Hill that day, it wouldn't have happened. So that was kind of great. And all the booksellers came to the event because they had gone home and locked up their stores. So those are the upsides.
Wow.
And it is fun to talk to people you would never get to talk to before otherwise.
Yeah. That's great. That's awesome. A lot of really positive audience feedback. Julia, not surprisingly, people love your work. They love Be Frank with Me. They're excited about better luck next time. We are going to start to run a little bit low on time. Dan, I want to come to you with a question that we like to ask independent booksellers. A lot of people who watch this program, as well as myself, love the idea of being an independent bookseller. It's kind of like a fantasy, of having this little independent bookstore and sort of dealing with books all day and selling books all day and dealing with authors. So I'd like to ask this question to kind of find out a little bit more about what it's really like and what it really takes to do the job. So this is going to be a fill in the blank. I'm going to start the sentence and turn it over to you.
Okay.
Don't get nervous. You're going to do great.
It's a little bit like 10th grade social studies. Dan, running a successful bookstore is part hard work, part luck, and part what else?
Adaptability.
Okay, great answer. Yeah. I think that's something that people probably don't really appreciate. I mean, I think certainly during COVID, it's become really obvious, but I think people don't really realize how many different skills go into being an independent bookseller. It's not just a matter of stocking the shelves and manning the register, but there's so much that goes into dealing with the authors, dealing with publicists, dealing with publishers. What do you find to be the most challenging part of the job?
Well, these days it's just sort of being open,
No kidding.
Just getting back to where we were. We're lucky. We're a brand. People know about us. People have shopped with us for years. We have operating hours right now that are limited, so it's not possible. And just everything going on in the world, it's not possible for people to be here. So we're just trying to ride it out until they can again. So I think that's just, that's sort of where we're at right now, I guess.
Got it. That's a great answer. Julia, last one over to you. You've got fans in the audience. Do you want to tell us anything about what we can be expecting from you, whether in terms of events, whether in terms of the paperback version of this guy, whether in terms of the third book that you've teased us with?
Here's the notebook.
Yeah. What will you? Can you tell us about it, or do you not do that?
I can tell you. I don't tell you what it's going to be about, but my daughter keeps asking me about it all the time because it's based on something that happened to me when I was probably 28 or 29, and so every time she talks to me, she's like, "Have you written it yet?" Because she's like really into this idea. Because she's 21, and when you're young in your 20s, all the most ridiculous things happen to you, like the things that are not, because as you get older, the life's little tragedies are often not as much fun as they were when you were young. So that's that one. And I think you might be my last big event. Do I have some luncheons and stuff I have to do, and I have a lot of book clubs lined up. Because I will say to everybody out there, many authors I know, like most of them, if you get in touch with them and want them to do your book club, they will usually say yes if they can make it work with their schedule, because we don't get to have this back and forth where somebody comes up to us now at the signing table and goes, "Oh, I love this part of your book so much," because it's lonely writing books. So to have that sort of back and forth is very gratifying, and all the right answers. That does not happen in life that often. So.
Wait, Julia, I want to clarify something. So the third book is about something that happened to you in your 20s, and we're not going to talk about what it is. Does your daughter know what it is, or is she willing to read the book?
Yes. It's part of the lore.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't feel like I talk about it all the time, but I was telling her the various things I was thinking about. Yeah. She's like, "That one, I love that one. I want you to do that one." So I was like, okay.
Oh my God.
It seems like it could be funny, because that's the thing. Like it has to. I like to write funny books that are sad, and ultimately, usually, as it works out, because my husband's a comedy writer, and the comedy writers always say this thing, which is comedy's tragedy plus time, and so like that's sort of I like that. I like the laughing and crying books. So
that's a great line. I hadn't heard that.
Have you ever heard that? Oh, well, you haven't hung out with enough comedy writers. A lot of my husband is not very dark, but a lot of them are very dark. And you're just like, wow. So we're more the chipper, funny people. So.
Oh, that's great. I love that. Well, listen, it's been such a complete pleasure spending time with the two of you. I just want to also take a brief moment again to thank the audience for being with us. Again, it is our 50th show. Our 50th.
It feels so special that we got to be in this
50th time out supporting independent bookstores. Thank you to Jenna Blome and Carolyn Levitt, founders of Mighty Blaze, for giving us this opportunity. Big thank you to my friend, partner, and fellow writer, Kimberly Hensel-Lawrence, for producing today and for being along for this ride with me. It's such a pleasure. Guys, both of you, thank you so much for being here with me today, Julia and Dan. To the audience, go to booksoup.com, buy books, have them shipped to you, buy this one, among others. You may already
sign it.
Yeah, you can get it signed.
Yeah, we have it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, but I can personalize them too, Dan.
It can be personalized copies. Maybe you already have a copy. Buy one for a friend. It doesn't matter. They make great gifts. I mean, come back with us next week. Same time, same place. Authors Love Bookstores. Thank you. Stay well and keep reading.
Thank you for having us. This was great.
Thank you.